Hey there! This is our 2009 Jeep Wrangler JK, and it is experiencing some intermittent limp mode, not like the biscuit, but like where your car does a intentional inability to drive fast, keeps itself in second gear, and that is very annoying, and it is doing it because it thinks it is protecting itself from you damaging it or it damaging itself. Now, what are the leading causes of that? A couple different ones, but for this 42 RLE that comes in this Jeep JK and a whole lot of other Fiat Chrysler vehicles, it is because the solenoid valve body, or valve whatever, is going bad. And that thing is not a very expensive part. It's $100-some whole replacement kit. Where it is expensive is in the time that you're going to be paying a mechanic to fix it. Now, can you do it yourself? Absolutely. It could be a 2 to 3 hour job, but every single thing went wrong for us, and it turned into a 2-day job. And if I didn't have a second pair of hands to do this job, oh man, it would have sucked. So, follow along. I'll do my best to show you what we did, how we did it, what was hard, what we did to go around it. Let's do it. Now, if you have a pretty lifted Jeep, you might not need to actually lift the Jeep as we were doing, putting it up here on jack stands. And this is something you could achieve either with, ramps or the lift. But I highly recommend having a little bit extra access working room. It will help you a whole lot to not be really struggling under there. So we wanted to make some extra room, some clearance for working. We had to pull the front drive shaft. And due to not having a car lift, we couldn't actually use the breaker bar. So we had to come up with a little bit of a ingenuity and found the perfect wrench, this middle size that we had, and we were able to use another crescent wrench to hold the drive shaft in place by locking the control arm and one of the nuts, as you can see. And this worked pretty well, and the only time we had to lower it and drop the tire back all the way to the ground was on the very last one when the bolts were all loose except the one we were trying to loosen. Now, pulling the front drive shaft was a little easier in the sense that the bolts weren't stuck, but wrenches are wrenches. The problem we had, and I don't know how to not have, is the front part was seized right there, and we weren't able to get it out. So we kind of just pushed it out of the way and moved on.
Right there, there's a sensor with the red pin, safety pin, security pin, whatever you want to call it. Driver's side. Yes. And it just lift right off, just like that. So that right there is the bottom linkage for your shifting gears. So trying to show you the bracket, you can see in the bottom right the part where the shift linkage was connected, and we've disconnected it. I've rotated it as far to the rear of the vehicle as possible so that you are able to access the bolt head on it. That bolt head is a 13 millimeter. Now I'm using a deep socket, just a really small one, and I've managed to get it loose. It wasn't super hard to get loose, it was just incredibly hard to access. So small wrench, and now it should be able to still rotate to the front position, which is where you need it to be for later on when we access the valve body through here. But to get it actually loose enough to remove, you have to have it in the exact opposite position. So having a big butt of a problem trying to take the flange off the top of the shift linkage selector, the big rod that will come out from the bottom of the solenoid body. I don't know what to describe it as other than the shift linkage. So I tried it with just a normal ball point, except it didn't work. It didn't fit right, so I just took the angle grinder to it, cut off about a ½ inch from the bottom, so I think it will seat correctly. Let's see if this will pull it off. I have the bolt out, So the bolt is out, the nut is off, it's just corroded on there, and no matter how much penetrating oil I've put on it, haven't been able to bust it loose, and we can't move any further without taking it off. So this and the modification worked. We were able to get the bracket. That's the part that attaches to the linkage that goes to your shifter inside the cab. This is the part that clamps around the linkage that goes down to the solenoid within the transmission, which means now we can drain the pan and don't forget, before you get this thing all the way off, or once you have it all the way off, use a wrench. Get that thing rotated all the way, if you're looking down at it, clockwise, the forwardmost position this could be in with it on the thingy. Do not forget to do that. Alright, so anyone who's ever watched Chris fix it, you know what I'm doing here. We've gotten a tin foil funnel. So because this doesn't have a drain plug, which is a terrible design, Fiat Chrysler, jeez, how do you fail that one? So we're gonna start taking all these. There's 10 mil. I believe there's like 15, 16 of them around the perimeter here. Remember to leave at least one of them, not snug, but taut enough in there that the pan itself won't fall. And so while it drains, it'll hopefully, as much as possible, be draining around the perimeter down into this pan or into this tin foil towards the pan. You could also get a way bigger pan, but we just don't have one. There's 3 bolts that are directly above the exhaust here that are absolutely, truly terrible to get at. We used the smallest 10 mil ratcheting wrench we could. Very painful, very slow, very stupid. We got the rest of them out, except one over there, and we're going to try and crack the seal. It's already kind of cracking, as you can see. And we are going to attempt to drain. So, let's see what oops.
ATF looks pretty clear though.
Yeah, it does.
Alright, it's on. Dump it towards your side.
Yeah. Slowly, slowly. And you can see the magnet. It's going to be in a different place for, different vehicles, but this one seems to be right dead center here. And you can just see that there's a good bit of metal shavings on here, but nothing super alarming. As long as there's no big chunks, you shouldn't be too worried. So we're just going to clean this up, use a metal painting scraper, and get all the old gasket off the side, clean it out of here, and then we're going to drop the solenoid panel. Alright, so you've got T45 here and here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10 millimeters. And so those should both drop down, and if we've done everything right, this should clip out. People were saying there's like 10 bolts. There's 17 hex 10 millimeter bolts, and we took out all 17 of those, and it was able to drop. 16 wasn't able to drop. 17, all 17. Some people saying 10. I don't know where this 10's coming from. You need to take all 17 hex heads, none of the Torx bits, but all the 17 hex heads out, and we got it to drop about 2 inches. And now it's stuck. Not sure why, but we'll figure it out, and we'll get it done. So we've got one of these little, fake little robot spy cam sort of things, and I'll try and put this video up into the video right now. And so there's 2 springs to the front part of the transmission, and those are like your overdrive or underdrive solenoids. We are going to put this up there to try and see if there's something blocking it, or if it's just kind of gummed up, because there's a number of exposed parts of the lower panel that come down as you're lowering it, such as the selector, the linkage selector on the top, and the 3 sensor connections. Our current theory is that the top of the shift linkage selector is just totally gummed up, and so I'm going to try and clean it off a bit, and hopefully that'll allow us to lower the valve body back down. Hopefully. Those spring things are sitting up in there. Try and, We're not totally sure if you need to know which one is left and right, but we're gonna try and do our best to not mix up left and right. All right, we just got it to drop free, and it is stuck by the exhaust.
Now, some people tend to cut the exhaust at this point. I had my dad push on the elbow seen in the bottom center of the screen, and that was able to just get enough of that half-inch clearance we needed to be able to drop it down and out of the way. All right, we got this thing out, as you can tell. It was incredibly blocked by the exhaust, and I wish the gulag on whoever designed that. So right now, we have two more Torx T15, I believe they are, that are currently holding the valve solenoid, or whatever it's called, on the bottom of it. So if you lift up, they're just below here.
After removing the old valve, be sure to pre-lube the gasket area on the new one when you're putting in the 4 bolts.
So this is the shift linkage selector here, and currently you can see it's not very mobile, not movable. And that's where you want it for when you're going to be dropping this out and putting it back in. And we put it in that position by, this is where the top of that bracket connects to. It's also where we just cleaned off a whole bunch to help remove this whole thing from the transmission. But as you see, if we put it into low gear, which is right here, in low gear, this can get caught on everything. But when you put it that one notch past low gear, which you can't do with the selector, you have to do by reaching up here under the transmission, or above the transmission under the vehicle, and clicking it one notch past, and now it won't get stuck in anything. Just got back from Ace, the helpful place that gives you free Mountain Dew. We had a what is this? We had to get a 3/8 inch drive adapter down to the 1/4 inch so we could torque our torque all these bolts to their proper spec. Newton millimeters. And then the like 17 hex head 10 millimeter we took off is 105 inch-pounds or 12 Newton meters. And it's piss and rain, super windy, super cold. So I'll probably just kind of time-lapse you guys and do my best to explain everything after the fact in editing.
And I've got everything back together, and I wanted to show you, we've got the fuel filter, and I've taken a plastic scraper and done my best to clean off the mounting face on the transmission. And so the filter pickup, these bolts, I couldn't really find a torque spec for them, but the rest of everything is like 5 Newton meters, or like 10 foot-pounds or some amount. I'll put on the screen, I'll put the link, or I'll put a picture to the manual that I found. Couldn't find a torque spec for this, so got them hand tight and made sure the seal was oiled before I put it in. O-rings and the such, you're going to want to put in oiled so they don't rip or tear or have any leaks, because you don't want to do all this stuff and then have it not work. So I also put the sensors back on, and we're going to put this pan back on and get her done. So I've got this very last bolt that needs to be put in. The rest of them are all lined up, and it's lined up, I mean, it is just such a terrible pain. And I've got the smallest 10 mil wrench I can have and the other 10 mil wrench I have, and I'm trying to hold the head of the bolt in like that. Update, I managed to get this last bolt started, threaded. Now there are two things that I was trying to think of. You want to keep your wrench as flat as possible, as horizontal as possible, because you're not trying to cross thread it into that. You want it to thread properly, which is very challenging. There's a very small amount of space where you can go like this right here. Up in here you can get probably 20-25 degrees of rotation. It sucks. And I use this ratchet head to give the upward force to get it threaded, or to get it in there, just pushing through this little bit of a gap. Now it's not enough space to get it properly seated on the head, but I was just pushing on the back of this wrench while I was cranking, and I just got it threaded, just started, so I'm gonna finish it. I won't be able to get the torque wrench in there, so I'm just gonna get it as well buttoned up as possible. The rest of these I will have torqued to the proper torque spec, whatever that is. I kind of forgot already. And then we will fill the fluid up top through the dipstick.
Just reinstalled the old drive shaft with the Alright, so we've got our fluid. Now you're wondering, where do we put it to fill it back into our tranny? You're going to come up to your engine bay, and at least on the 3.6 Pentastar on this 09 JK, your transmission fluid checks dipstick is back to the passenger side of the engine, right here where we've got the funnel going in, and it should look like this. Pull it out, get your funnel, fill it in, crack the top, and hope that you've put everything together correctly. People who've done this before us on the internet say 5.5 quarts. That's
what the Napa said too.
Let's hope they know what they're talking about. We did 5.5 quarts, so we've got a half quart left. We're going to start the engine, let it idle for a little bit, and then we're going to check the, check the dipstick. Engine's up to idle. I don't know what that weird sound was, but put the last half quart in, and it's looking a lot better on the dipstick. Let's take it for a test drive. Whoa. No devastating sounds, so let's see how this goes.
It runs. It actually runs.
It runs?
Yeah.
We'll see how far.
I don't see any oil slicks spilling behind us, so that's a good sign.
Now, so the symptoms that we were experiencing, and I can't say we aren't experiencing yet, it was more very periodically and more frequently as time has gone by, going into limp mode, staying in second gear, especially after, like, let's say we do a 2-hour drive somewhere, car would sit for a couple hours, and then we'd get back in to, drive home. That's typically when that limp mode, second gear thing would happen. Now, obviously this car has been being worked on the last 2 days, so it's not hot yet. But in the last, few months, it's been a lot more frequently that not just on the drive home, but on the drive there, it would start putting itself into limp mode. And should we have, tried to fix this months or years ago? Yes, but we're Jeep people. That's not how it works around here. Those symptoms we experience seem to be a very common symptom for this transmission. This transmission's in a lot of FCA vehicles. It's a corporate transmission, very commonly used in these things, the 42 RLE, and it's also kind of notorious for having this limp mode problem. Now, we'll let you know if this is, if it keeps happening or not. So far, transmission is running, which we are excited about, given that this is our first major transmission.
And I'll be able to get home tonight.
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully. So, yeah, we will keep you guys apprised, and if everything goes well in the next couple of weeks, I'll put this video together and let you guys know whether or not this was the solution to the notorious 42 RLE. Thank you guys for coming along, and remember, if some guys can do it, follow along on Instagram at SomeGuy_outside. Leave a comment down below if this did or did not help you. And
it sure helped me.
Sure helped him. And I can totally tell you that I understand why mechanics charge $2,000 to do this job. It was not easy, it's doable, and it could have gone a lot easier, but it is laborious.
Compass is going in the right direction.
The compass, good.
This stuff kind of smells like Mountain Dew. I really doubt that did a thing.
Now this video's over.